What's the secret to writing a book that requires little to no marketing to sell hundreds of thousands of copies and put millions of dollars in your pocket? That's what we're talking about today. Today's book on the 52 Book Challenge is Write Useful Books, a modern approach to designing and refining recommendable nonfiction by Rob Fitzpatrick. This was a book that was recommended to me personally. I had never heard of Rob or this book, and it's been on my list all year. I could not wait to read it, and I read it in one shot on the plane coming back from a marriage retreat with my bride, and it absolutely, completely took me by surprise. This is arguably one of the most surprising and best books I've read in a while. If you're at all interested in writing a book, or if you do write nonfiction books, you have to pick this up. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because it's just such a beautiful read and it's so short. You should pick a copy of it up immediately and just crush it. But here's the thing that I absolutely love about it, given that I'm new to the author space. My first book came out 2 years ago, traditionally published. My second book is coming out later this year. More details on that very, very soon. Stay tuned. With the same publisher. And I've never self-published, but this is the only book I've read that thinks about books as long tail events. Let me explain what I mean. He says early on in the book on page 5, the goal of book marketing, I should say, is to stop needing to do it. Okay. Books are inexpensive products. As such, investing loads of time into active hands-on marketing is unlikely to sell enough copies per hour to return a meaningful income. His solution is to design something so useful that readers can't help but recommend it. As such, I invest practically 100% of my effort into creating the most useful book possible, testing it with real readers at every step, and treat marketing as largely an afterthought. Not because marketing isn't important, but because marketing a useful book is the easiest thing in the world. Now, there's two things to think about. He addresses this early in the book is, what are you optimizing for with your book? If you're optimizing for becoming a New York Times bestseller, you don't have to have a good book. Sad to say, it's not called the New York Times best writer or the New York Times best book. It's a New York Times bestseller. You just need to sell enough copies and create enough, to do about it that the people up in New York pay attention and put your book on the list. Same thing with the Wall Street Journal, same thing with USA Today, right? Even Amazon. These are just like who's moving the most units. We don't know if the books are good or not. And as my friend Rory Vaden says, usually most people who hit any of the bestseller lists hit them in their first week of the book being out. How can they become a bestseller if no one has read it in the first week? It's because people are pre-ordering or like the author, or there's just been a huge marketing blitz to get people to buy the units. So if your goal is to optimize to hit those lists, then you do need to think about marketing. Most of the time when people try to hit those lists, they're not worried about making money. They're worried about moving enough units in a certain amount of time to hit the lists. What Rob's talking about is how do you make one of his books, his first book that he wrote 12 years ago or 11 years ago is now putting $12,000 a month recurring passively into his bank account, just selling on Amazon. 11 years later, no marketing, no work. That's a six-figure income off of one little book he self-published 10 years ago. This is real money. So the idea here is he's optimizing for long-tail sales. Part of that is self-publishing. You'll keep more of the royalties yourself. But either way, his whole premise in this book is to focus on writing a book that is recommendable, that when people pick it up, they can't help but tell people so that they're doing the marketing for you, which everybody says they want, but he has an actual strategy to do it. What he talks about with useful books are there's two types, pleasure givers for nonfiction or problem solvers. And he recommends writing a problem solver. Write a book that's useful, actionable, and clarifying. Okay? So his idea here is, quote, by shaping your book around this sort of clear promise and outcome, you fundamentally change its behavior in the marketplace. So my first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, is a problem solver book. It is a clear promise. If you read this book and do it, you're going to learn how to get paid for what you know. That's one reason why the book is selling so well long after the launch. It has easily sold 10, 15x after the initial push. All the marketing efforts I did to get that first launch week, it's done 10 to 15x that without any effort because people are telling other people about the book. So his whole premise is write a book that people actually have a problem with. They have a problem about something. You write a book to solve that specific problem. The more specific you can get, the better the book. Because as he puts somewhere in the book, I don't know if I have it dog-eared, is that nobody recommends the second best solution. So you need to become the best. Not for everyone, but for someone. So what is a problem that you could solve better than anybody else in a book? That might mean zeroing in on a very tight niche, but then having the best book in that niche or for that avatar around that topic. There's something powerful about when you have a clear book. And his whole premise is make the book promise in the title, in the subtitle, in the cover. Make it so clear that the wrong people won't even pick it up in the first place. Because if they don't pick it up in the first place, they're not going to be disappointed. Only the people that it's absolutely for will pick it up. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the book I absolutely needed. They're going to leave incredible reviews on Amazon and they're going to tell people about it. And that is his strategy to create a recommendable book. Now, this is more of the marketing strategy at the beginning of the book. A big chunk of this book is explaining and showing how he does what he calls beta reading, which is a lot like beta testing a product. Okay, I just did an episode on how to pre-sell your course before you sell it. It's the same premise. Like he has an entire process for how you test the premise of your book before you even write the manuscript, how you get people's language to make sure you're writing about the problems that they have specifically and addressing the challenges that they have specifically. And then as you're writing the manuscript, he has a process for how do you enroll a handful of beta readers with a process of what to do when they're reading the Google Doc to tell you what parts are slow, what parts are boring, what parts are confusing, what parts were huge ahas for them, which parts they're loving. And then addressing the manuscript and chopping it up to fit and improve and see where are people stopping to read. They only get through chapter 2 and then they don't leave any more comments. You know that you're losing them in chapter 2 or losing them in chapter 3. He has an entire process that's so obvious when you think about it. I got to start doing this for my next few books. And then he's got an incredible process for editing the book down as tight as possible to create an optimal amount of value per page so that you're not going too long in the book without another aha. And if you read his book, it's pretty meta because every other page I'm like, underline, star. There's no section that seems to get too far off before I have another aha moment. He's strategically moved sections around or chopped things down so that I'm not going very long before I have another brilliant aha moment, which keeps me engaged, which keeps me loving the book and finishing the book, which will help me recommend the book. This was such a brilliant little read. I can't wait to reread it, and I'm 100% going to follow this process with book number 3 whenever I decide to write that one. So there you go. Write Useful Books by Rob Fitzpatrick, a modern approach to designing and refining recommendable nonfiction. I highly recommend it. Go figure. It's that good. You can pick it up on Amazon. I believe is the only place he sells it. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. Sorry, this one came out a week late. I was traveling last week, so I have a couple of book reviews this week as I catch back up on my 52 book challenge. And of course, you can join along with me. Check out my reading list at grahamcochran.com/52 books. It's just a list. There's no opt-in. You can just see what I'm reading and what I've read so far. I hope you have an incredible week reading your books, whatever you choose to read. I'll see you on another one of these book reviews very soon.